Hi there, I'm Karen Spurzel with the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, and we've got Roxy Dean here. She is an avid photographer and a retired teacher in the Baltimore County Schools. She lives in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania, where she raises Scottish sheep and rear breed chickens. And she has a sheep named Sheila who asked her to write down her adventures for her. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Could you tell us a little bit about Sheila?
Sure. Sheila is a purebred Shetland sheep, which means she came from the Shetland Islands in Scotland. And she is a pure black sheep, even though their breed has so many different color combinations and faces that are unusual. And I usually, when I was teaching, I would ask my students what kind of sheep they have. And it's funny because some of them would say, I have white sheep. And I would say, well, do you have a dog? Dogs have breeds. And so sheep have different breeds, just like the dogs do. So they do have different kinds, and they have a certain name. And I was interested in Sheila, or I would say Sheila kind of picked me out at a Scottish Highland game where I was with a band playing in a bagpipe band, where I eventually became a drummer. And my husband and daughter were playing bagpipes. And we went to visit, and it was almost like she kept saying, oh, you have to take me home with you. And it was you might say, love at first sight. So we took Sheila home with us, and we hardly knew anything about Scottish sheep. I did a lot of research, but she kind of helped me because she was very smart. And she was the first of many of my Scottish sheep. And after that, I had some also Scottish blackface sheep, which come from the UK, which includes Scotland and England, and some crosses. But Sheila was my alpha ewe, and I always kind of used her. She kind of taught the rest of the herd what to do. And a lot of times people think that sheep are really stupid, and that's really not fair. The book that I just finished, I made that a point to tell everyone how sheep can remember you. They can remember faces. They have unique expressions that show that they can show emotions. They can recognize people for 10, 15 years, and they're actually pretty smart. And I found that Sheila pretty much kept my herd together as they got bigger and bigger. And I saw some things with her that I probably would have only seen if I was out in the wild in a country like Scotland. Let me give you an example. I had just gotten a new dog, and I had 6 or 7 lambs that were just born. And when Sheila saw the dog, she didn't panic, but she knew that this was a warning, and she had to give the rest of her ewes a warning. And I kept hearing this very unusual sound. It was a whistle sound, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. It was kind of like a shh, shh, but it was really loud. And I just stood there, and I waited, and I watched, and I realized that every time Sheila saw the dog coming by, because to them, that's a predator, especially if you have baby lambs. And all of a sudden, all the ewes, all the moms went and grabbed their babies, and they got into a big circle, and they pushed the babies underneath them, and they were protecting them. And I didn't quite figure out what was going on until this happened 3 or 4 times in a row. And I'm thinking that whistle was definitely a signal from Sheila for them to get their babies and just be careful. And those babies just stayed there with their moms until the dog went past. And then after about 2 weeks, when they realized this dog was pretty friendly, since he was an older dog, they just stopped doing it. and they were very comfortable. And I actually have lots of pictures of him going down and touching noses with the sheep. He actually became their friend. So he really wasn't a herd dog, but that was fine because he would come down with me when I fed them. And I also have stories out about him. His name was Harley, but I called him the unheard of herd dog because of that. But they kind of got used to him and got to like him, except for a couple little ewes that would stamp their feet, and it was really funny. And that's what lambs do. If they have trying to keep something away or they don't want them in or near them, they do stamp their feet. And I have pictures of that. That was pretty funny. But anyway, Sheila kind of gave me the idea to start writing some of her stories because there were always adventures like what I just told you about her recognizing the predators and giving the rest of the lambs. And she was the alpha ewe, which means she controlled the rest of the sheep. So if you have an animal who is someone says is the alpha, that means they're the leader. That's another name for a leader. But Sheila also gave me lots of ideas. And I have a sister Sheila, which I should say is where I got her name, because Sheila, and here's a picture of her. Sheila had a nice crimpy curly hair. Now, of course, I have curly hair, but my sister Sheila had the same color hair. And the two of them together were a perfect match. And Sheila, my sister, was good at drawing. So I had her do some illustrations. And I want to share this because this is the first book about her. And let me see if I can get that on there.
Yeah, it needs to be, I think, a little bit. There you go.
If you've ever heard of a statue called the Thinker, where he sits and he's on a rock and he has his hand under his chin, I had my sister Sheila draw me a picture of Sheila with her hoof under her chin, and it's called What Are You Thinking? And so if you've heard of a female sheep, or the girls, they're the ewes, and the boys are the rams. So her stories are all about her ideas and what she's thinking. So I thought that would be a perfect match. So I had her picture, What Are You Thinking? But spelled E-W-E. And all my books, and I would do this for my students, I said, every time that you would say the word you, Y-O-U, you're not going to see that in my book. It's going to be E-W-E. So I had a lot of play on words to see if they were paying attention and they could find it and pick up on it. So anyway, the stories are all from things around my farm. And my farm is called Celtic Herd. And again, it's a combination Celtic, Irish, Scottish, and I was interested in Irish, Scottish things, and I only had Scottish sheep. And so the Scottish sheep are not as common in this country as they are in other places, but actually out west you find a lot more Shetlands. And Sheila gave me an idea to write a story about her playing the bagpipes too. So I have a story called Sheila the Sheep Plays the Bagpipes, which explains all the different idiosyncrasies of the bagpipes. And Sheila has a set of bagpipes delivered to the house, and she has a ram that brings her box in, and she starts a band. So she kind of gave me that idea because I was in a band, and just seeing a bunch of sheep playing the bagpipes, you would think, how is that possible? But my sister Sheila helped draw the picture of her playing the bagpipes. And then I told her, well, Sheila, you get your wool sheared once a year. And if you didn't know what that means they have to have their wool sheared, because otherwise it would be too hot and too miserable. And if someone says, sometimes some people or some kids used to think that was mean, that they would have to have their wool taken off. But I can tell you some other funny stories where I got my ideas too, because when the wool was being sheared, the baby lambs thought that that pile of wool was their mom. And they would go around all over. And I was like, oh my goodness, they think their mom is in that big pile of wool. And then I would have to go get the wool and get it and put it in a box, put it together and make sure that they were close enough to their moms. And then once they would smell them, they would get used to them. But it was actually kind of funny for a while, because all these little babies were running around thinking their moms now were in this little box. But my story about this Sheila that I'm going to be reading you part of today, Sheila gave me the idea that, well, you know, we have to get sheared once a year. So why don't we have some fun with it? Why don't we go and while we're getting sheared, get our hair done, maybe get a different design, maybe get our hoofs painted, like those of you that get your fingernails and your toes painted, and you go somewhere and have that done and pick out your nail polish. And they decided they all wanted to do that. So I had to come up and find somebody who would come to the farm and set up the hair setup, the whole setup, like if you used to go and get your hair and put it underneath, like you can see in these pictures, all right, while they were getting their hair dried and styled. And many of my students, I said, what would you do what kind of pictures would you draw if the sheep were going to go to a spa? So think about it, a spa like people go to. Well, why not have sheep go to a spa? They can get sheared, they can get their hair done, they can get their nails or their hoofs done. They can, maybe we even decided that we would have an exercise class. So I have another sister who teaches Pilates. So we had a Pilates instructor also come the day they went to be sheared. So we call this book, Sheila the Sheep Goes to the Spa, and it has a subtitle called Shear Fun, S-H-E-A-R. So when you shear your wool. And we had to coordinate, well, how are we going to get all this done? And it would be an all-day job just to have all the sheep stand in line to have this done. So we had to have some other activities to go on at the same time. So therefore, some of them did the exercises while they waited. Some got their hair done, some got their nails done, some got their hoofs done. And eventually, everybody was happy and they had a good day. And then they figured they also were ready for the hot weather, because if they didn't get their wool taken off, they would have been miserable. And if you've ever gone around to any farm, usually you can find sticks or fences or shrubs where the sheep will just start scratching and they start rubbing against it. That's called ruing. And you see a whole bunch of yarn just attached to things, because they're starting to scratch it off anyway. They're getting too warm. And it used to be in the olden days, they would send the little kids around to go gather all those pieces of wool that were stuck on tree branches and fences and things. And they might have enough to put together to make something out of. So anyway, Sheila gave me a lot of good ideas, playing the bagpipes, having a shearing day, going to the spa. And then we have a lot of history around this area since we're close to York, Pennsylvania, York County. And one of the other fairs, besides having the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, was the York Fair in the York Fairgrounds. And they always have animals there too that they have displayed. And so there's a lot of history about the Revolutionary War. So Sheila said, why don't you find some information about the York Fair? and we can all go. We can take the whole farm to go. So we did. We took a trip up there, and guess what? The sheep actually went on the rides. They went on the roller coasters that they had. They went on the Ferris wheel, and they could see all the way all around York, Pennsylvania. They found out a lot of information that went back to the Revolutionary War. So all of these books that Sheila is in, not only are they telling the stories about them having fun, but you can also find some actual historic information. We call that both fiction and nonfiction. And one of the things that I like to do is take pictures. I have lots of pictures of Sheila all over my house. I have canvases. She's in all the books. And so we thought that we could put a lot of the pictures of just what the sheep look like on this farm. And you could see the different color combinations and the different faces and the difference between a Shetland sheep and a Scottish black-faced sheep. The other difference that is really obvious is that Shetland sheep, the ewes, remember those are the girls, they don't have horns, but the rams have horns. And that's another characteristic. That's just the way the breed is. But the Scottish black-faced sheep, both the ewes and the rams have horns. So Sheila told me to put a lot of information about that too, so that kids can find out that there is a difference in lots of different breeds of sheep. And there are so many breeds of sheep. So if someone says, oh, I don't know, I have a white sheep or I have white sheep, I would say, okay, your homework is to go home and find out what breed of sheep you actually have. And then you come back and share it to me the next time. And I even would bring Sheila's books in. And it's too bad that Sheila couldn't come in herself, because she would have loved to have come into the classrooms. Now, one time my daughter was allowed to bring in one of her goats before we got Sheila, but it was allowed outside. But then they changed that and they didn't want the animals to come in. So unless you had a penned area outside, you could visit. But Sheila was very friendly. She always let anybody come up, and she loved being scratched under the chin. I guess a lot of your dogs do that too. You know, they just want you to rub under the chin. So I don't know, can I share some of the information in the beginning of the book? Do we have time to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is my sister Sheila. You can see she has dark curly hair, just like the book, just like Sheila the Sheep. And that's where we got the name. And she did a lot of my illustrations for those books. And this book is dedicated to Sheila to remind us that she was always the alpha ewe. And so her legacy is continued in the Sheila the Sheep adventures. And eventually I will do another one. But I also want to thank the students of Pretty Boy Elementary School, because a lot of their pictures are in here. And it's funny because my sister Sheila did not know what these students were drawing, and they didn't see her illustrations, and yet there were a lot of similarities, just doing exercises and sitting at the beauty parlors and things like that. And they would come out just saying, oh, I look so pretty. And anyway, but a lot of the kids came up with these ideas. And whenever I came in, even when I was substituting, I would ask them to draw me some pictures that maybe sometime they could have their own illustrations, or they could do their own books and illustrate them. And a lot of times we would bring in just pieces of wool, and they would shape the wool and make their own sheep, and maybe even create their own breeds of sheep and name them, which were some very unique pictures. EWE. Had to throw one of those in. Should we go through the first chapter? We start on
Yes, why don't we read the first?
Okay, all right. Chapter 1. I'm just going to share with you the first chapter of Sheila the Sheep Goes to the Spa. Remember, the subtitle was called Shear Fun. Sheila looked around the pasture and noticed bits of grass were starting to push through the ground. Even the trees were starting to produce new buds. There was a fresh smell in the air that was only noticeable in the springtime. It must be close to spring, Sheila thought. It's time to get rid of this heavy fleece. It is starting to feel scratchy and it is getting way too warm. I think it's time for a haircut too. Sheila looked down at her hoofs. The nails were pretty dirty and long. My hoofs sure need a good cleaning and a trim, she sighed. There were bits of dirt stuck in between her hoofs. Sheila started to scrape them on a nearby rock, but the dirt didn't budge. It was so tightly wedged that she could not seem to dislodge any of it. These nails look pretty scraggly, Sheila bad. I need a day at the spa real soon. She started daydreaming about nice warm days in the sun and remembering how nice it was on spa day last spring. I need the whole works, nails, hair, and the fleece removed. I also need a permanent, not just a temporary, she chuckled to herself. I think I will have to contact the Wool Off Sheep Spa. They bring the right tools and the supplies, and they have a comfortable pen to lounge in. So she found her ad that says, call the Wool Off Spa for a B'ewe'ti Ful Ewe. 1-800-WOOL-OFF. Now, where's that phone number, she said? Oh, yes, 1-800-WOOL-OFF. She had a book with numbers stashed behind one of the hay bales. She moved the hay around with her hoofs so she could reach it. Looking in her notebook, Sheila found the Wool-Off Spa number. Here it is, she dialed, and she dialed it. 1-800-WOOL-OFF. Hello, answered a sheepish voice on the line. Wool Off Sheep Spa recording drone. We are currently busy answering the bleats of all our sheep customers, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can and return your call as soon as the wool clears out of our phone lines. Thanks for being patient and fluffy. Please tell us who you are and the name of your herd, and we will call you back. The bleating answered. Hello, Sheila Bad. This is Sheila the Shetland Sheep from Celtic Herd Farm in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania. I need to schedule the whole works done, ASAP, for my herd. It would be nice of you to return my call soon. If you don't get an answer after 3 times, hang up, eat some animal crackers, and try again. Actually, I'm going to have some animal crackers myself right now. All this planning has made me hungry, Sheila replied. And then she went to get her stash of animal crackers. She had to hide them from the younger ewes, or they would gulp them all down at once. They can be such piggies, she said. The phone finally rang, so Sheila quickly swallowed the last animal cracker and answered it. Bah, Sheila said. Bah, replied the sheep from the Wool Off Spa Company. Are you looking for a unique spa adventure? Asked the sheep on the other line. If so, then you came to the right place. We offer many services at an unusually low price. 1 bag of grain will cover the expenses of wool removal. 2 bags of grain will take care of a permanent hair design. And for a clump of hay, you can get your hoofs cleaned and trimmed. Whatever behooves you to try. Right now, we're scheduling a week in advance. What herd did you bleat this was again? Sheila bleated back. Celtic Herd Farm in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania. I need to make our animal appointment for my herd. I'm looking at your brochure. I see you have a woolful special. We have some ewes that also need their horns waxed. We Shetland ewes don't have horns, but many of the girls here do. The Scottish Blackface and the Shetland Scottish Blackface crosses will all need to have their horns waxed. She'll bleed it. And are there any special treats you're offering this spring for your favorite returning customers, she asked. Sure thing, I hear you, the voice on the phone replied. We are offering glazed animal crackers as our special treat this year. But don't you worry about putting on a few more pounds because you will be sheep exercising with Jennifer, our new Pilates instructor this year. She is our specially trained physical trainer and will be coming along with the fleece removers. So what sheer pleasure would you be interested in? The voice bleated again. Sheila Badback. Well, we Shetlands only need the spa hoofs and the wool removal done. We'll think about the sheep exercise. I have to admit it sounds unusual, but we'll probably stick to the usual. Okay, the voice on the phone bleated back. If I heard you correctly, this appointment is for Celtic herd sheep, the farm in Glenrock, PA. We have Sheila, the Shetland Ewe, as the contact person and the first recipient of the usual package. Is that correct? You got it, Sheila Bab. We can't pull the wool over your eyes. Ha 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 ha. You have a good sense of humor, the other sheep answered. Now, what day next week would you have in mind? Sheila Badback, either Monday or Tuesday would work. The weather looks like it will be nice and sunny and no precipitation on those days. We don't want the rain ruining our new hairdos, or they might turn into hair don'ts. Sheila chuckled. Bah, there you go again. I sure do enjoy talking to you. The first available day we have is next Tuesday. So can we wrap this up? The other voice pleaded. You got it. Tuesday's the first day you can make it, so that would be fine with us. By the way, we do have fewer sheep this year. 6 went to another place to live. 3 sheep are now living in an alternate charter school where the students learn the proper care of sheep. And all of those sheep keep in touch and are happy in their new homes. Oh, and I do want to have the same specialist I had last year. I believe her name was Kelly. She did great work. Why, certainly, the other sheep replied. As a matter of fact, Kelly is right here. Let me put her on the line for a minute. Sheila, how are you, babe? Kelly hollered. I have some new ideas for your special curly hairstyle that you'll love. See you next Tuesday. Thank you, Kelly. I can't wait. Bye-bye. Sheila Badback. She hung up the phone and she picked up her newest magazine that had arrived earlier that week, the March issue of Sheep B'ewe'ti. She turned to a section that showed a picture of a sheep with dark curly fleece. And the heading was, Is a Permanent for You? I like that style, Sheila thought. It's not my usual or even close to what I usually get, but I think I'll ask Kelly if she can do this one instead. And then she read the rest of the specifics. And that's part of the chapter. And the last thing I want to share with you is the poem about Sheila that is in the book, The Sheep of Celtic Herd. And that's the one that has her thinking. And let's see, I don't know if you can see that one or not. Probably not real clear, but it has the same picture of her thinking. Sheila is a Shetland ewe that looks like she is thinking. She stares at you and has a look that seems like things are clinking. She is the alpha ewe and shows that she is very smart. She's quick to see when things have changed and leads with all her heart. She loves her lambs and takes such care to make sure they are near. She doesn't let them go too far and make sure the coast is clear. If she spots a predator, she'll give a long, loud whistle. The herd will then begin to form like they were shot right out of a pistol. She will then move away from all the noise and all the commotion. She keeps her distance from the crowd like a caboose on a locomotion. She loves for you to rub her chin and then paws you like a dog. She wants her cookies and her feed and can act just like a hog. Sheila is a special you that acts like she is thinking. When she lets you rub her chin, it seems like she is winking. So that's what I have to share with you right now, unless you have some other questions.
This has been absolutely delightful learning more about Sheila. Where can we find Sheila's books?
Well, Sheila's books are on Amazon. And if you go to Amazon, but you have to be careful because there's lots of books that have the title Sheila in them. So you have to have the whole title, okay? Sheila the Sheep Goes to the Spa. And if you type in Roxy Dean, sometimes you'll get some other books that I have. So you really need to put down specifically for this particular book, because there's like 13 of my books on Amazon, but sometimes they're spread out. You might have like 1 or 2 in a row, and then it'll go with something else that says sheep or something else that goes Sheila. But if you go to my website too, I have all the pictures of what the covers look like. Actually, it's on Facebook. It's just a simple website. If you go to Roxy Dean Author, then all the books are on there. 2 years ago, I had a little display at the actual festival grounds at the in Howard County for the Sheep and Wool Festival. And I had some of the books back there. Some people came back and looked at them then. But you should be able, if you put in the whole title, you should be able to find it on Amazon. It is also, I noticed, now that some of them are on Kindle, some of them are on other bookstores right now. If you go online, sometimes different companies now, they periodically exchange the books and share them. So it might be another book company too, not just on Amazon. So.
Well, thank you very much. And we hope we can see you again at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival when it's held live again.
Yes, that would be really nice. So, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty, bye-bye.